How the heck are you, everybody? I am Fastidious. Welcome to my channel and welcome back to Best in Class, where we are going class by class, ranking all the non-Lord legendary heroes in the game from worst to first. Every time I am joined by a fantastic, beautiful collaborator, and today we have none other than Slate. How you doing, Slate?
Very well, thank you. How is everyone today?
It's great to have you. You actually did like the prologue to this series with me that gave me the idea where we did Lords. So I do want to mention that because I don't know if you saw, Slate. Did you see I just did a video with Mike? We did Marksman.
Yep.
And
people were not happy.
well, yeah, people were like, where's Yovar? Where's Yovar? Where's Yovar? Yovar's not included. The same way Araka and is there another legendary Lord fighter? I'll think of it in a second. No one was included. Sorry, which? Oh yeah, Elder. Of course, I forgot him. The way they weren't included in my video with Ronaldo when we did fighters. And on this one, there's 4 Lord tanks. They're not included. Why aren't they included? Because I don't think there's any apples to apples way to compare a Lord to a non-Lord hero. If you want to know worst to first, all the Lords, you and I already did that. So I'll put that thumbnail on the screen right there. Go check it out. I think it's a really good video. You guys seem to like it. I had a great guest. So without further ado, what are we doing today, Slate?
We are doing all the defenders 9-1. It's quite short, potentially.
We'll see how much we yap.
We'll see. Yeah. But I think, if you remember, Fasti, when we did the Lords one, it was interesting. We had those clear buckets, but within the buckets, we did have differences of opinion. So I'm interested with 9 having fewer, how similar our lists are actually going to be.
Yeah, when you say bucket, I think what you mean is kind of like groupings among the list, and I had very clear ones. So I'm thinking you probably did 2, you know, like these are clearly the top 3, and these are clearly the bottom 3, and these are the middle 3, something like that. So it'll be pretty fun to get into it. I think it's all been said, just to point it out, right? There's 13 legendary lords in this game, but King Heart's gone, Cyrus and Krodor not on this list. So it's from Regulus down to Edith in whatever order we choose to put them in. Without further ado, Slate, should we get into it?
Yes.
All right, guys, let's go.
Fastidious.
Fastidious.
Okay, here we go in my beautiful Google sheet. We're going from, where is it? From 9 to 1. There you have it. Slate, who do you have at number 9?
Orum.
Let's get him on that list. I think we definitely 9 through 7, we will have the exact same heroes. It will really come down to the order. So talk to me about Orum.
So he is an infernal tank. He doesn't have second life, which is sort of like an immediate because obviously if you are using them as a tank, you want them to like be tanky and do different things like that. So not having second life is like a mark against him. His damage like increase that he does, so his like unique ability, it's actually only limited to time, so that runs out quite quickly. He is okay in faction trials, like he's good for faction trials, but usually there are like better options in other pieces of content. You don't use him in boss fights, and he's absolutely rubbish in PvP, so he was bottom of my list.
He is not the bottom of my list. I think you made perfect points through and through. He is second to bottom on my list. I think you'll not be too angry about who I put last, and that is going to be Azhor. I'm assuming you've got Azhor at 8. Okay, so we're in sync, just one swap. I'll show you. There's my Orum. Maybe I'll explain before we get into Azhor, who I truly really like. I despise that hero. I think has a claim to be the worst hero in the game. I know some people are gonna say like, oh, but he can stun and kill Basu. I'm gonna tell you why I don't think that matters. I just want to give like in praise of Orum. I do think like I use him in faction trials. I think anyone that has him probably will use him in faction trials. We do have so many more options now, so that's made him worse, right? We have like Lord Phineas and these other kind of melee units you can bring in, or Xena, so that's taken away from him. But I think for me, what it came down to, Azhor versus Orum, I think the biggest argument for each, like you said, like dog water PvP, unusable in so much content, really in any PvE content, with the exception of Guild Boss 2 for both of them. And it kind of comes down to Azhor is like a poorest man's option for stuns in this game. In really Apocalypse 1, you'd never use him in APOC 2, or you could use him on a 120k team, but in my opinion, you're winning in spite of him. You're like, I need any amount of stuns, I need a tank, I need a nightmare unit. So it's for people in a very unique situation with phenomenal heroes, phenomenal gear, You don't have Krodor, so you need Wrath, and then you need to bring a tank, so you bring Azhor. That's like the only like really like deeper into the game use case, and everything else is like spamming APOC 1. Go into his kit in a second, but I just think Azhor's terrible. With Orum, at least, hopefully it doesn't take me too long to scroll. The second we should find, let's go to the world rankings, excuse me, any Infernal team, very likely they use Orum. So this one is a Krodor Infernal team, but if we can find one with Infernal, I should have scouted this up first. We need to find Infernal with not Nightmare, which maybe is not going to be the cream of the crop here, but it will be in the top 100, I hope.
Yeah.
Come on. Come on. Maybe we'll fast forward through this part. Another Nightmare with Infernal. Come on, Soul Cadence. Show your face.
Come on, Solka.
Come on, buddy.
I think just on the point of Orum, talking about faction trials, Titus is actually a very good little tank. And in a funny, with his, I know he's an expensive unit at 31 cost, but like he's fantastic in Gear Dungeon too. And I think my whole thing is that if there is an epic that is better than a legendary tank, like, unless it's because they're doing something different, you kind of have to go, what is this legendary tank doing? And that's, yeah, that was another reason for me that Orum was bottom of the list. But yeah, they're both pretty rubbish.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of tough. I couldn't find a single team over here, so I can't even prove my point. I have two guys in my guild that do 300k plus running a Soul Cadence Praetus team. And if you're not bringing a Nightmare team, this kind of undermined my point, but if you're not running Nightmare with Infernal, then you need another tank. And like, you don't want it to be Constance, right? You want her to be an Invig hero, or an inspiration hero with her attack to the moon. So why not use Orum? It's very specific, right? It's like he puts out burn, so that's helped some of your Infernal units, specifically Soul Cadence, and then he can tank, which is like, that's all you need to do is like be there and tank. But it's really niche, the same way I think Azhor's really niche. So I actually think while I was searching, you made a great point that yes, even Titus is at least as good, if not better, just maybe slightly different kind of investment, not even a bigger investment. So it really just comes down to who you think is less useful, who's more crap. Because I think these two, there's really no place unless you're so desperate or you need to squeeze them in, or you're something really, really specific, like you're running Praetus and Soul Cadence, which is like, okay, you have Praetus and Soul Cadence. Yeah, I bet you Orum and anyone would work, right?
Yeah. I mean, you could pretty much then bring in Livian and get extra stuns and build her tanky. You know, like you don't even have to bring in an Infernal tank in that comp. Like you could literally just chuck in that. But yeah, with Azhor again, Baron is such a great tank as an epic that, again, comparing the two, if it's between Azhor and Baron, I'm bringing Baron. So that is a huge knock against him. I think the thing that is, the plus point is exactly what you're talking about with APOC in the fact that he can stun, but also he does give this like damage increase to his surrounding. It's much smaller than like the Constance or Dolores. It's just his tiles right around him. But if you don't have a Constance, that teeny bit of extra damage can help, basically. So in terms of like benefit, at least it's a little something extra that he can bring.
You know what I'm going to do, Slate? I actually think you convinced me. I've never done this on one of these lists. It's like the fourth one. I actually think I am going to switch these two. Because, I think I was colored. Shout out to Viceroy and Hawkus, two of the top players in my guild that both get over 300k with this Infernal Praetus team. So they use Orum as the tank. Because in that situation, you just should use Orum, because why not? You have that perfect team. Burns are going to help Soul Cadence and the rest of the guys. And then it's just another unit to be empowering like the Pyro Blitz. But that really is the only thing, because as I was talking and remembering, Xena and Lord Phineas put out enough damage that they can basically tank, because they're going to delete stuff if you use that bottom lane, if you have Zealot on the other side. And then Titus, yeah, he's kind of annoying to build and get going, but he does work. It kind of undermines all of the usability of Orum right now in this game. Pretty sad stuff. And I do think with Azhor, as terrible as he is, at least at the end of the day, he does something which all Nightmare units have the ability to do, and that's be a warm body on the field. Which is kind of
and
a Nightmare.
The king.
Yeah. So I think I'm actually in agreement with you. I'll say, you'll notice with Azhor, and this is going to be a theme here, some of our underwhelming tanks that aren't like good at tanking, it seems like they were designed by the devs being like, well, they don't need to be that good at tanking because they're just doing all this damage based off of defense, which is just not a thing, right?
I really wish it was a thing.
Yeah.
Like, that would be amazing. Like, we do have Gluttony who scales off HP, but to be honest, it's just his ult that eats the enemy more than necessarily it being because it's HP based. But it would be really cool if you actually had damage based on defense HP that worked, but it's still, as far as I understand it, still like blends with attack, and that's why it's so much weaker. So you still you're like splitting your stats.
The way it works is they have like a conversion formula to turn defense into attack, and then they plug it into the same old formula they always do. And that thing's just not generous enough to make it worthwhile. They just completely undervalue it. So we do have heroes like a Midon or a Trusk that can give like a defense increase, but that is not the same as like a defense inspiration if they were to bring that. So if we get a hero where it's like you build as much defense as you want on them, like a new tank, and they're like an inspiration defense hero, and they give like 60% of their defense to everybody, then we could maybe start cooking. But until then, we've said it for like a year now. It's just not going to be a thing. I want to do one final thing on Azhor, not to spend too many times on a bad dwarf, too much time on a bad dwarf like I did with Mike when we talked about Cratch. But if you're struggling to use Azhor, the first time I tried him on a takeover in Guild Boss 2, I was like, he's not a good stunner. Do not use his ult. When you use his ult, he loses his heated state, and that's how he does his stuns. So if you get this guy, even without his exclusive, he's great as long as you don't ult. And then if you get his exclusive and don't ult, there's a ton of stuns. So it is something. He's not a good option. Don't get this twisted. But
he's an option.
He's you know what? He is an option. Who do you have at number 7, Slate?
Number 7, I have Trusk.
We have a big departure, as you'll see.
Interesting.
I'm like captain I'm the conductor of the choo-choo Trusk train.
Don't get me wrong, I like Trusk. It's not the next, what I'd say 1, 2, 3 were sort of very hard for me to actually like.
Okay, so we completely agree then. I had these as I'll tell you right now. I'll tell you in the videos right now. I had the bottom 2, I had the middle 3, I had 4, and then I had the top 3.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so I think they'll be the same. So Trusk is in these next 3 for me, but you'll see he's not at the bottom. Maybe he's at the top. Why don't you love my sweet Uncle Godzilla?
Well, I think it's one of those things. Okay, one, I love the fact he's got this extra block. That makes him super, super useful. He is really great in campaign if you're running an ESO or not just campaign, like Void Rift, different things like that, if you're running ESO without your Cyrus. But obviously, if you have Cyrus, you're not going to need Trusk. He is absolutely meta in the Hellfire Codex. He's really good in that. Absolutely rubbish in PvP. And so I think the thing for him is that he's one of those weird tanks where he's a solid tank. He's not got this second life, which means he's a great tank. And again, yes, okay, it relies on you having a Lord, but I don't know. It's compared to what the others bring, that out of the 3, that's where he sat for me, was the bottom compared to the other 2.
I definitely hear all those points. I think I have certain points that will explain why I have him higher, but I think maybe we wait on that and I can show you my number 7. So I actually thought I waffled for a while between Trusk and then who my other 5 or 6 is. That's what I spent the most time on my whole list deciding. So I'll explain that when we get there. My 7, it took me 2 seconds. I knew these were my bottom 2. I thought about who was the worst. I was 100% sure she was my 7, and that is going to be Edith.
Oh, interesting. Yes. Okay. Okay.
So, yeah, was she at least? She was your 5 or 6, I'm guessing.
Yeah. She's in this bucket.
So we're in the same buckets. The reason I have Edith, she is instantly better than Orum or Azhor because she is the best at something in the game, right? She is the best at doing the knockback in Gear Raid 5, aka Gear Dungeon 2, on the bottom. However, and I keep saying it, so I think we'll do it. Next week, I'm going to post my video on Borit. You can do it with other heroes, including someone you get for free on day 1 of the game, the rare Lord Borit. When it comes to this bottom lane, though, Edith is the best, and she is a 0-0 investment hero. That rhymed. 0-0 investment here. But she doesn't need any skill ups. You barely even need to build her. I always go triple defense. Like, why not get a little extra damage? She is perfect for this. Outside of that, she's definitely better as a tank, I think, than Orum and Azhor. I'll show you right now. If I can go into the gallery really quick. Her base stats are comparable, but slightly better. And because of the knockback, she kind of buys time, and it can function if you time it out well as extra block for a little bit for those 2 things. If we go here to the stats, Her defense is quite nice, and then her HP is like great. So actually, I even undersold her. So I should have made this point earlier, but get these numbers in your head, viewers. 29,000 HP, 3,900 defense. This is like kind of benchmarks we're looking for when we're evaluating like good stats. And then some heroes are done so dirty, it's pathetic. And there's no better example in the game. Take my word, Orum has bad stats. Azhor is a complete and utter disgrace. He's a defense-based hero with 3,200 base defense. And then he doesn't even have 24,000 HP. I mean, it's hard to put into terms like how really, really, really bad that is. That's like epic level stats. Like I think who would be an epic with fairly strong? If we go to Olog or something, you can see he's coming in at 21,000 with the same amount of defense. It's like, how's this even a discussion? Terrible defense. So Azhor and Orum just inherently, if they just, for any normal mindless content where you're like, I need warm-bodied tank, they're going to be so much worse because Edith has so much better stats. And then the key thing with the knockback, she can do this. Her damage is terrible because she scales off defense, but it's still so much better than Azhor. So I like her for that. The reason I have her this low, Slate, is because like there's just nothing else you're going to use her for. It's like if you get her early on and you just need another tank, you'll do it, but you would still always pick Olog and Baron over her, even Livian. So it really just comes down to where do you use her? Only in Gear Raid 5. So she gets a plus. That's why she made it to 7 on my list, because she is the best at it. However, you can do it with other heroes, including a rare lord. So I just can't give her too much glow up. What do you think?
I think, yeah. I mean, I'm happy. I can talk about her now, or I can talk about her when we get to that.
Well, let's do
her.
this. Do you have her? If you have her at 6, you can talk about her now. If you have her at 5, then we have the same 6.
I think we have the same 6.
Is it Krodor?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, when we get to 5, you do in defense of Edith, I'll do in defense of Trusk.
Perfect. But we're agreed on Krodor.
We are agreed. But I did waffle between him and Trusk. What do you want to say about Krodor?
I think the thing is, again, he's not got second life, and especially compared to Brock, who's another tank in this thing who does have the second life. He has that lovely extra block. Brock and block. Krodor has an extra block.
You got 2 extra block.
Yeah, so 2 extra block makes him absolutely meta in the Hellfire Codex. I think because he's Northerner, he's already a better option tank-wise, because Northerners are just tanky factions as is. So I think he's a pretty decent tank, to use. And with that extra block is fantastic, especially in things like not just Hellfire Codex, but the Ludwig Void Rift, where you have the spawn of those skeletons. If you're not going to cheese the boss and take them down, having a unit that blocks that many is absolutely fantastic to give you that extra bit of time to do that damage. And so I think he's one of those things where it's he's solid, but there are better options.
Yeah, I think you said it really well. I definitely gave him plus points for being a Northerner. However, when it comes to Northerners, right, you're eventually, everyone will have at least a Solda. So you're going to have a Solda or Hearts that's going to be a Lord you can use that is also a tank. And then you're going to have at least Olog, if not Brokkir, right? So I was thinking, when would I actually use him? If I had a Solda and Olog, I would probably just still pick that over him. There is a thing people forget. I don't think you would, but this is a really cool ability they added without even mentioning it. It wasn't in any update or anything, or it wasn't in any notes, but they added this 2 or 3 updates ago. This is really cool. So whenever he ults, he doesn't just increase his block by 2, but every single Northerner's by 1. However, it is limited to Artifact Raid and Gear Raid. This makes him super good for progressing through Gear Raid 2 and Artifact Material Raid, so that is great. Helping also every other...
Gear Raid 1.
And Gear Raid 1? Also...
Yeah, no, Gear Raid, sorry, Gear Dungeon 1.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure.
I always mess up the dungeons and thing, because obviously it's Gear Raid 4, but again... One of the sort of safest strategies is to do the double tank. And if you are struggling with DPS, but also Bastion rings early on, having a Krodor to add that extra block that you're missing from the Bastion ring is going to help you with that block, because you need a block of 8 for all
That's
those
a really
blocks.
good point. Yeah, especially if you're using him in a Solda or him in Hearts or him in Brokkir, then it's if even without Bastion rings now they each have 4, and then he has 5 from his ult. So yeah, that is really cool as well. So this gives him some functionality. I really do wish this was just all battles. It's not like it would be broken or overpowered. Like, yeah, it could be maybe pesky in GVG, but it would not be meta defining. Like, it would help a ton in Tank Codex, but he's already, as you said, like a GOAT for Hellfire Emperor, the Tank Codex, which, by the way, he totally is. He will be on every top team in every comp from Deegs all the way down to day one players, right? So I really do like him. I think when it comes to me, I actually gave him a knock because, so when I was deciding between him and Trusk for 5 and 6, I gave Trusk the up because he's an Esotericist tank and not a Northerner tank, because I had to compare him against Olag and Isolde and King Hearts and Brokkir, who I would always pick all of those over him for any content besides the very specific use cases you described or the thing he's best at, which is the Tank Codex. So this to me, if it's not clear, is like this group is the best, and I actually clearly, because I waffled over 5 and 6, these are the 2 best. So I guess for me it really was like 8, 9, 7, 6, 5, 4, and then top 3. But yeah, I think that kind of touches most of those points. So to me, with Trusk, it's like, who's his competition? Ardith, who I know people have done some cute things in GVG, but he freaking sucks in general in this game. And then it's Cyrus, and it's like, congrats, Slate, you have Cyrus. I don't. So Esotericist is a huge faction, one of the best in the game, and Trusk is by a mile the best tank almost anyone will have unless they have Cyrus. And he does the most damage by a mile out of all these tanks, all the defender tanks. There's one tank on this list, obviously, we'll discuss, who does a ton of damage. So yeah, I guess I'm getting into my Trusk transition now. But yeah, I think he belongs at 6. He's such like a 6. He's pretty good, right?
Solid. Yeah, and I think the thing's exactly what you've just said. The reason Trusk is lower for me is exactly that. If you have a Cyrus, you don't need a Trusk. And if you don't have a Cyrus, because you are bringing 2 factions in, then you tend to then, because esoterics, let's say you have a Venoma or even a Raiden, you're going to be bringing in your big DPS with Boreas and Karmit and Anora and different things like that you are then going to use, like Northern Esoteric is beautiful, or even Nightmare Esoteric is beautiful. And so that's why it's like, well, then you still wouldn't choose Trusk over one of those defenders, which is sort of what I was thinking.
I think my counter to be is like content where you need like just a tank. And that's what Trusk can be. And he's like one of the best tiers in the game at like just being a tank. Yes, he doesn't have like the undying as you've described, but like you just want to bring DPS and enough healing and enough tanking. So like the use cases I've thought of, which is I've done through a lot of Voider takeovers and stuff like this, is like, I want to bring my single target and I want to bring my AoE. So like I want to bring my piercers and I want to bring my esotericists, or I want to bring my cultists and my marksmen, or this, right? So that's when we talk about cultists, we're talking about another guy in a second, but like there's tons of Voider stages where I bring piercer and I bring esotericists. And if you're breaking through the campaign, that's a great way to do it. Even if you're doing nightmare stuff, maybe you don't want to waste one of your 4 nightmare units on a tank with Baron, assuming you don't have Krodor. Trusk is going to help so much. I think Trusk is like, the reason I'm so high on him is because like I try to, I mean, as most content creators do, I'm trying to think of like all different kinds of players. Getting Trusk as like your first legendary, or like, you know, as opposed to like getting Regulus or something like that, who is going to be obviously higher than him on the list, I think is really powerful, because like progressing through campaign and Void Rift, he's kind of insane for it. So that's my, I guess we've moved on. That's my in defense of Trusk. I would also say the final Trusk point, his exclusive is so good. I know that I'm not going to give too much shine to that, but he actually can deal damage, which is a very rare thing in this game.
Oh no, especially in Codex. Like, wow.
Yeah, so like there you could use him with Cyrus. You know, if you got Trusk and Cyrus and Eris, you're getting triple S, baby. So yeah, can I find it? This is pretty crazy. He increases his block inherently. So now when he ults, it's like a Bastion Ring, and then he does that. So he's doing 5 block on his ult. His counterattack damage, which he does trigger a lot, is 100% increase during the ult. And then he can stack 5 times 3% more defense. So it's another 15% defense on top of everything.
Amazing exclusive.
It's really
like a lot of the time you don't actually choose the exclusive over Bastion because you don't have the extra block.
Yeah.
So the fact that has extra block means that you're getting a boost and you can sub it for Bastion Ring, which is what you want on your tanks.
Yeah, exactly. So, and like
I can see that. I can see the argument for Trusk. You know,
you don't have to agree, as long as you can see. As long as you're picking up what I'm putting down, I'm happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would just say that's kind of huge for Trusk. And Conqueror, I should have even mentioned that he really is good in Conqueror, especially for someone progressing early on, and maybe you just picked up Eris, so you could even like running Raiden as a Lord. and losing that spot. The way my team, I run Morgan and I can't deploy her for my cultist team. Like he can do that much. So it's pretty darn cool. I totally see why people have him lower. However, people are always like lumping me in Trusk because they know how much I like him. If anyone has him lower than 7, you're a criminal, and I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had here at number 5 Edith. So what is your indefensive Edith slate?
So I think it's sort of pretty much to do with what you said about the fact that she is best in slot in Gear Dungeon 2. Yes, I've used Bora on takeovers as well. He is absolutely usable, 100%. I actually like to stick her in a morale set if you've got it. She doesn't even need that good a set. Whereas Bora, if you want him to do his job, you have to make sure he's raging. He has to have enough survivability. Whereas Edith, because she's already tanky, you almost can put her in less good gear that could then boost your team. Like, she doesn't even have to be in a very good morale set to
It is true. Like, yeah, I usually when I do takeovers, the accounts like haven't like beaten Gear Dungeons yet, so they don't have morale sets. But that's a great shout. That's gonna be like best in slot, I would say, in terms of her right side gear. I usually just run her in like broken set, defense bonus, main stat, everything, and then I hunt for HP and crit, and she does like a little damage. Like it's way better again than someone like Azhor. It's definitely not as good as someone like Trusk, and that damage could be the difference between like your Volca or your Estrid or your Callista or Ardia killing it or not killing. Also,
and also speaking about that with gear requirements, because she doesn't need that much, if you are progressing, it means that you can put your 2 best tank sets on your Titus, who's in that middle lane, and your tank that's going to be holding down that left side lane. And that, again, is a plus point for her. But also, I think the main thing is about the value in the fact that with Gear Dungeon, you only get 100 keys per month. Yes, you get way more if you do farming, you get the master keys, but essentially you want to be getting to 9 and 10 as fast as possible. And if you, exactly what you said, if you don't have that gear, it works, but he requires a lot more to make him work to boost those
thing
levels.
I wanted to say that's going to help your point. He also makes the gear requirement on the DPS behind him higher.
Exactly. Yeah, so what I'm saying is given that Gear Dungeon and the Forge sets, especially now that we have exclusive exclusive gear. Oh, so many exclusives. My view is that when there is limited content, that means that you have to try and min-max it as much as possible, that you can't afford really to run it. So like, for example, with the normal gear raids, you can hit 19 and you can comfortably farm 19 for a while before you have to try and push 2021. But with Gear Dungeon, you really want to be trying to get to, 8, 9, 10 much faster than you would necessarily want to push. And so because she's best in slot for it, because she then lowers the requirements for your team, that to me makes her more valuable in what she provides to your account.
I think you defended it quite well. Honestly, it kind of makes me want to flip her in Krodor, but not enough to actually do it. I hear you on Edith. I hope you hear me on Trusk. I think this 5 through 7 is pretty darn clear. I want to say something. While you're talking and I was looking, I noticed I was in watch guard. I was like, oh, where's Edith? Oh no, I need to go to tanks now because you got to go by all. And then I was like, Edith's on the bottom. And usually they do this in order. This is a tangent, so people can skip ahead 30 seconds if they want. They go in order-ish of when heroes were added. Not exactly. You can see Brokkir was one of the newer heroes when the game came out. Azhor was OG. You can see Constance was kind of new. Edith is here. And I'm pretty sure actually Edith is the newest tank in the game. Yeah. It's Edith or Trusk. And Edith came out like almost a year ago. I wanted to do a thing. Let's go to fighters and see how many fighters are.
Funny enough, I know when she came out because she came out when I started content creation. She came out April.
So then she's the newest. Then Trusk came out like February, March.
Yeah, she was the first like billboard that I like signed up for as a CC.
Cool. That's awesome. So that means then she's definitely newer than Trusk. He was like February or March. So she's the newest tank in the game. Let's just do very quickly. How many fighters are newer than Edith? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Even though she was OG on Forerunner, it took a while. 8, 9.
Helga. When was Helga? Oh no, Helga
was the fusion, but I think that was the anniversary. 10
anniversary.
Yeah, at least 10. Ymerit, that's 11. Ma is 12. Celine is 13.
You merit Ares.
Ares is 14. I said you merit at least 14. So since our last tank in this game, Moonton, you wonder why we complain about fighters? We've had at least, on our quick count, 14 new legendary fighters. All right. I'm not even gonna rant.
Can we please get an Arbiter defender that actually defends?
Arbiter, dwarf, defender, dual faction, northerner, rides a shimmering golden donkey to the celestial skies above. Yeah. Okay. Our number 4, I think it's definitely the same. Who do you have?
Regulus.
I also have Regulus. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Regulus. Do you want to go first?
Regulus is just okay. I know this can sound a bit weird, but to me, he is the Comet of defenders. In the fact that like Comet is just solid AoE magic. He does nothing like too fancy, and you can rely on him. Regulus is a solid tank with a second life, with damage absorption. He's just absolutely just does his job. He's like, you want me to tank? I will tank. And I think the thing is that the stronger that the Watchguard faction has gotten in recent years, particularly with Ingrid, he's now meta in Ingrid comps in GVG, which is, I know, very, very like niche. But it's interesting how, you know, it was like, oh, he's rubbish, but I think it's because his faction just didn't let him shine. But because he's a second life tank, he's now like shining.
Totally. I just clicked the cinematic so people could see. I've always liked Regulus. He was like my second or third hero I ever got. He was my first legendary tank. Always been high on him, and people aren't, and this is why. You see the cinematic, you see a dragon appear, and you're like, holy crap. And usually you get him pretty early for a lot of players. He's a common bug here. You're like, what did I just get? And it's like, you got a defender, right? You don't have Regulus? That's crazy. And you definitely have Ajax, right?
I got him from the card. Yeah.
Okay. I haven't used my card yet. I'm still deciding if I'm going to pick Ajax or Araka. I'm hoping I'm going to pull one of them, and then I get to use the card on the other. That's my plan. Okay, so Regulus over here, because you see the cinematic and you're like, this is amazing, and then you get a freaking Lion Boy defender, you're like, oh, that sucks. Like, they call it like jebaited or whatever people say in my chat, right? Yes, you did get baited thinking it was something insane, but he's still like one of the very, very, very best tanks in the game. Like you said, he's got this unkillability that lasts an eternity, 12 freaking seconds. He can even do stuns with some frequency. He can do a nice shield for everybody and get his HP to the moon. Over here, he can get extra rage regen, so he can get this ult up. And then the crazy part is his stats are wild. Like a little low on the HP at 27.3k, but he does get that boost from the ultimate. I can just move you so you don't have to get out of the way. Sorry.
Oh.
And then that defense is, I'm pretty sure, the highest or the second highest in the entire game for any hero. That is through the roof, 4,200. So defense doesn't matter too much in early game content. You can ignore it, but later on, you do need to hit these marks. And he's pretty dang cool. I wanted to shout out his A3 too. For a lot of content, this is really, really, really good, especially like I run 2 tanks in my Guild Wars defense. So like this makes my Constance like so much better for going like tanky mode, even though I have her like Glacier Inspiration. And this is not insignificant, 10% permanent for everyone the whole fight. He's just nice, right?
Yeah,
you also get this
solid
defense increase for everyone in range. It's pretty cool stuff. He's so clearly not our top 3, but he's, in my mind, he's so clearly better than everyone else we discussed so far, right?
Yeah. When you think of defender, this is the kind of hero that you think about. I know it's a class, but when you're talking about like tanks, you want a solid tank that is going to survive, that is going to just like not have to worry about. You put them on the field, you build them all HP bonus, and you're like done. And that is what Regulus does.
Yeah, the one thing I would push back against actually is I do wish he had more mitigation in his kit. You really need A3 to have any extra mitigation. They kind of do it by just doubling his attack, his HP during his ultimate, so he's so tanky it doesn't matter. But compare that to like when Brokkir's frozen, he's just like not taking damage. We'll talk about Brokkir in a second.
But that's why he's not number 1 on the list.
Exactly, but if they could even just give him like, and during his ultimate, he gets 20% reductions, you know? Like for magic.
Thankfully, what I find really interesting is Guardian is pretty much the only tier 1 set that you can get super early that is end game.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we now have Tempered Will, which is absolutely like fantastic and is the one above it. But Guardian is going to see you through from when you first get it on like stage, 8, 9, even stage 5, I think it is, all the way to like end game.
I actually think I have my Regulus in a pretty juicy build to show off. No Ancients, just Guardian I farmed over the duration of my account. Just juicing the boy up with the big stats. And then we got no Ancients over here, and you'll see that scales with Regulus like insane. So we broke 100k, and we have almost 11k defense. This does me wonders in GVG, again, because I did finally get Ingrid, so I can run him. Pretty cool. You know what I'll say against Regulus, though? His exclusive sucks so much, it's crazy.
So
like I don't know. I did my big exclusive tier list, and you were saying how much you love that Trusk has the extra block. He doesn't. It should be a rule. No. They should make it a rule that all defender exclusives get +1 block as part of it, and then the other thing, because you'll just
because otherwise you don't use it.
Exactly.
There is one exception or two exceptions where you would use the exclusive, but pretty much you are always going to go for Bastion Ring, because what do you want your tank to do? Block.
Yeah, I'm assuming Reeve is one of those exceptions.
Yeah.
So let's maybe actually good time to move on, huh? Maybe who do you have at number 3?
So this was actually interesting. Technically, 2 and 3 for me are tied.
Not allowed.
Huh?
Not allowed.
Not allowed. Okay. Well, I've got the order, but like in my mind, this was like, because basically who I have in second place.
Viewers, you can disregard this. Have this stricken from the record. Ties are not allowed.
Basically, the person in second place is clearly second place if you have another hero, but if you don't have that other hero, there's an argument that third is better than second, is what I'm going to say.
So let's put it in the order that you should do, that if everyone had every hero. Let's do that.
Then in third place is Reeve.
Okay. There's a chance we're going to finish off right next to each other, because in third place, I also have Reeve. That's why as I started talking about his artifact, I was like, oh, we can maybe transition.
Yeah.
I love Reeve. I hope he comes on radar again soon.
I really hope he comes back, because he's one of the few fusions that I think just benefits everyone at any stage. Sorry, limited, not fusions. That benefits everyone at every stage. I love the little min-max that he brings to your account with Razak, with the extra gold. But the main thing that I think is so cool about Reeve is the fact he is so flexible. You can build him as a tank, and he tanks, very well. You can build him to stun and more like crowd control, which again is absolutely fantastic. And you can also build this guy for damage. Like this guy does a beautiful amount of damage in a tuning crystal, all attack, and his stuns will be going off like crazy, and he'll be like absolutely AoE damage. He's fantastic, genuinely. I love this guy.
Me too. Yeah, he's phenomenal. I want to quickly show the stats so everyone can see. So he's an attack. He's clearly designed to be DPS. He's the only non-defense-based defender that was designed to be a DPS, and he's attack-based, right? They didn't snub him on his stats. I mean, he has almost 4K, just 18 less than 4K defense, and he has almost 29,000 HP. He's right in there. Like the numbers we're always looking for, like 3,800 defense or more, 28,000 HP or more. He's just hitting every single mark, right? Why do they do the other ones so dirty? Why does Azhor exist? That's kind of what I'm working towards. I'm almost convincing myself to switch him with Orum again. But with Reeve, what you said, you kind of hinted towards a point I wanted to make, which I think if you were starting a new account and the Reeve banner was live, he's the best tank in the game. Like, Brokkir's the ultimate tanker's tank, and the other one we're going to discuss can do another extremely unique special thing. But if you want just you're starting on day one, who's going to help me for this month or two, it's definitely Reeve, because you can use him for basically everything, and eventually you can build him in all these different ways. But early on, where things just stats don't matter as much, you can't just build him one way, and before you know, he's going to be doing your tanking, he won't die, he's going to be killing everything, and he's going to be doing the crowd control. I wanted to point
and you don't need to skill him. That's the other really, really big plus point for Reeve, is you do not need to skill him to make him work well. Yes, getting that ultimate down is fantastic, because you get the CC. Getting that passive down that you just did with the slows, again, helps as well. But genuinely, he does not need to be skilled at all, unless you are going like GVG type thing. And again, he's absolutely excellent in GVG because of that CC and stuff like that. But I don't know, he's just one of those really unique heroes that I think they built and created so well. And I think he's one of the only heroes truly that CCs as well as you would want a CC to do. Does that make sense? Like Mari, absolutely fantastic crowd control. And then Reeve, I think, just absolutely nailed it as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's like Reeve, Mari, and Greed. That's like, oh, so they really are controlling the crowd, and it's like just happening the whole time. Just for viewers, because not everyone might not be so familiar since he hasn't been on Raid Up for a while, and he's a limited hero. It's a permanent slow anyone near him and it's scaling off of this range around him. So it's kind of like that kind of Constance Dolores range around him, if you could imagine, but it's just the square, so no the extra points. This goes up to 5 targets. So like you said, you don't need the skill ups. There's very little content you need to be slowing more than 5 targets. Once you start getting it, it's kind of crazy, because keep in mind, he's a cultist, so if he has a lord, now he's dealing more damage to all those guys. Yeah. With his ultimate, it's amazing with skill ups, obviously, but the stun already lasts a full second to begin with, and it already lasts 20 seconds, and 1100 cost is long, but for a lot of things, it takes long for waves to come in this game. He's just got single target here, but this AoE is crazy, and then finally over here, he even gets heals, and anyone near him, right, is going to be slowed anyway, so it's a guaranteed crowd control, basically. So it's really, really spicy. This goes up to 7%. I love this guy. I was lucky enough. I pulled 2 legendaries on his banner. I wasn't able to pull for him his first banner. He's the first limited in the history of Watcher of Realms, and I didn't have content creator diamonds back then. I'm free to play, so no Reeve for me. He came back. I pulled like 300 times, and I hit twice, and I got Reeve both times, which was amazing. So I got him A1. This is crazy. Every 4 attacks, he's going to do a stun, and the stun lasts a full second as well. It's just like he's my Conqueror is like an easy triple S. It's one of the easier codexes once you have like an endgame account, but he's my top DPS. He's over Ardia, over Valkyria, everyone. You just put him in front. He can't take damage because everyone's slowed and stunned, and he's hitting 10 units eventually, and it's just crazy stuff.
The nice thing as well in Conqueror, like if you're running a cultist team, you can use him to protect your Cerberus. Like Cerberus is so difficult to use, but that's a whole different thing entirely. And what I like is that he can protect because of again, crowd control and damage, and it's just but like there's so few tanks in this game that you don't have to run in a Bastion ring, and he is one of them. That you know, Tuning Crystal, yes, his exclusive is very nice as well in certain content, but he's just brilliant.
Yeah, for sure. I also want to say for any like whales out there, this A3 is pretty insane for GVG. So his base slow, I'll show you right now. They actually don't tell you very well here, but you can see it's not the max slow, which is 75%. It's 50%. Yeah. I wish they updated this when you clicked it. Yeah, it goes up to 10 targets, which is like Necromancer and all his buddies, right? And then if you get this, it says it's still 50%, but this actually goes to a 75% slow. It increases the effects. So getting that A3 is pretty insane. I guess the very final thing about Reeve, sorry to spend so much time on him, but I think you guys can see Slate and I love him. He might feel like, oh, well, he doesn't have the mitigation or this and this, so he's not as good at tanking as some of these other guys, but he's killing everything and controlling everything, that once you get him up and running, he can tank like nearly everything. So he's good for so much content. Like you can use him in 121, you can use him in Gear Raid 4, Gear Dungeon 1, you could even use him in Gear Raid 5. I wouldn't suggest it because cultists don't really work. Phenomenal in Conquer, phenomenal in GVG. He's just and early on you can just use him everywhere. You can even use him in AoE Arena and stuff like that. He's so cool.
And Hellfire Codex as well. You put him in that middle lane. Where the boss is, his little weird thing will grab the minions when they're walking down like the zigzags. And again, that helps as well. And what I also love about it is you build him in HP bonus Guardian. If you sort of like this hybrid build, you build him in HP bonus with rage substats and you can chuck even in crit rate. It's one of those weird things you're like, this is weird gear. Where am I ever going to use this? Reeve.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, really well put. Okay, number 2. I think there's a real chance we don't have the same 1 and 2. So I'm quite curious to see.
Oh.
I think there's a very real chance. So who do you have as your number 2?
Constance.
I was correct.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I actually anticipate this. So let me tell you why. And I think this is why some people have been enjoying this series so much, and our first video as well that did so well. As much as I am like playing PvP stuff now, it still is not something I cared that much about. So at the end of the day, big picture, Constance, this is my game changer, because there's so much content. As good as Brokkir is, best tank in the game, not named Cyrus for being a tank. And obviously goated in GVG. I'm going to let you explain all of that. Constance is Constance, so we'll get to that. I want to hear you talk about Brokkir. I think we should better that way.
Okay. Brokkir is hands down the best tankiest tank in the game. Like, this guy does not die. And if you get him, and this works all the way from A0 to A5, but obviously if you have A5 Brock, he doesn't even die. His ultimate basically means he doesn't take damage when it's got it. He has this second life. He's part of Northerners. His stats are incredible. Like, you can put him in pretty rubbish gear and he will still survive. You put him in fantastic gear, and you are getting, 120, 130k HP with like 12k defense. And it's like this guy doesn't die, and I love it. It's just fantastic. You just leave him, and he does it.
Yeah, he's really phenomenal. I would push back. I think that he's the best. I really do think a well-built Cyrus, if you're building him just as a tank, is still going to be better for a broader amount of content. But obviously, that's Cyrus. That's Cyrus, like the fourth, fifth, sixth best lord in the whole freaking game, right? So whole different story. But for any normal hero, he's so the best. Like, it's insulting that we even spent time talking about Regulus or Trusk or whatever, right? Like, it really is insane. Permanently, when he's there, him and all the allies directly touching a square, getting 10% reduction. And then as soon as he freezes, which is like what he's doing constantly, this goes up to 30. Combine that with the good base stats, and then the crazy ultimate that makes this last forever. It's pretty dang nuts. You mentioned his A5. This is more your world. But this A5 over here, the fact that oh my god, we finally killed him, and we got the carnelian dot off, and then he pops back up fully ready to rumble again, is stupid. It's very stupid, and I just want to give a shout out to Jake Smash. I hate your defense. You're not a nice man. Okay.
I mean, the lovely thing again about Brock is you don't need to use him in a northern team.
Yeah.
To make him fantastic. Yes, he benefits beautifully with Northerners, but he doesn't need to be it because he is such a phenomenal tank on his own. He's basically, you're going to put him in pretty much every GBG team unless you have what I'd call like the super rare meta ones like Cyrus. Because obviously Cyrus is
even still, I'm trying to, I mean, you would know better than me. Can you think of, because you need 2 comps, like, is there anyone that's not using him on 1 comp? I can't really think of it.
If you're using Torrid or Cyrus.
Okay, yeah. So there's one situation.
Or Gon. Basically, if you've got Gon, Torador, or Cyrus, like if you've got all 3 of them, they're the 3 that you're going to be using. Or if you've got Ingrid and you're using Regulus. So, like, they're the meta.
So the closest you could get to normal would be like an Ingrid comp with Regulus and a Cyrus comp on the side. So like you're not really going to make it work without 2 ancient exclusive legendary lords. He's that good. And even with some of those teams, like those people that double up, this is what I was hinting at with the Jake Smash thing. Like I had to go against this even. So the people with like the really A5 everything, they double up an Ingrid with a Praetus, and then they've got an A5 Brokkir as the tank. It's like all you can do is like try to maybe fly over and pray, and then hope you have a bunch of multi-awakening Uridans. That's
when you need, Uridin and level 5 Demon Soldiers, which, just a side note, a whole new game when you hit level 5 Demon Soldiers.
Totally. I've been farming for a month trying to get my Necromancer to 5, and I haven't gotten a drop in 2 weeks.
They're horrid. They're horrid. I've been spending, I'm now hunting legendary flyers, and that's been 4 months in the making. I'm like, okay. But yeah,
so let's just say my Scourges and your, I'm trying to remember what drops from Gear Raid 3. Like maybe your Axes are probably doing really well.
Yeah, and I think this is the thing with Brock is that, again, especially if you get him early on, because he's got fantastic sets, you can use him so well. I think he's the one hero, in my opinion, that completely makes Olag irrelevant. And the fact that, like you said, if you're going to have Isolde or Hars plus a second tank, you tend to run Olag, right? So you do Isolde Olag or Hars Olag until you get Brock.
There's one exception. AMR 18, I'd say that Olag's still better there. But that's literally it at this point in the game. Yeah,
because he's got the shield. I can see that. But maybe also there are definitely some niches that you could use Olag over, but generally speaking, you're going to be subbing in your Brokkir for Olag. He just fantastic. I literally, he's the best tank in the game, and I think that's why I put him above Constance, because when you think of defenders and you think of a tank, you think of something that is going to survive no matter what you chuck at it, and that is this guy. So
I definitely don't disagree. It was a hard decision with the top 2. I want to give one final shout out to Brokkir that like I even sleep on. This is so annoying. It's crazy. This is in like a 2 tile range around him. The fact that you can feel like you're 2.5 tiles away, and right as you clip in, you get frozen. He's really a nightmare.
It's horrid.
Yeah, and shout out
It's
to him.
amazing when you freeze the enemy on your defense, and it is absolutely horrid when you are up against a Brock and you get his freeze in terms of like his ultimate, then you get the passive, and then you're done. It's like, oh, I see.
Yeah. Yeah, you do the perfect strat, and then one dog gets frozen, and it's all over. I get final shout out to him. He's the only good dwarf in the game, and dwarves are my favorite. So good for him. Constance, I guess I'll start here. She's just so special. I guess that's what I would really say. If it was a couple months ago, maybe I probably would have put Brokkir first, but the glow up that Watcher has had, as someone that doesn't run Arbiter, Watcher's like maybe my best faction now, which is unthinkable because they were so definitively the worst faction in the game. But when you add a Lucius and a Kagiri and a Sun Wukong and an Ingrid, next thing you know, it's a guy, and you buffed all the Lord skills too, which they did for Ein through Ingrid, Lei of course as well. Pretty crazy. I just use her like anytime there's new content, like it's a guarantee I will use her. Once you get her A3, she's even better than Dolores, which is kind of crazy. In terms of inspiration, the healing, once you get deeper into the game and you actually need it for PvP stuff, like for single target and AoE and anti-air, depending on what you're running, it's all possible in Arena. And then obviously you can get a lot of crazy stuff in GVG, though I would say that's slightly off meta. But if you're like me, you have to run things that are slightly off meta. It's just phenomenal, and that's slept on. And she's the only melee inspiration in the game, and it's that good. So she's so one of one and so special that as amazing as Brokkir is, and it really is such a clear top 1-2, I had to give it to her, you know? And then I guess it has to be mentioned, like, Arbiter is the king comp in the game right now for so much content. And every single Arbiter comp, full stop, is worse without her. So, yeah. I think that combined with the fact that she's just such a superstar, even out of faction, but then with Watcher, which is like at worst like the 4th or 5th best faction now, and likely top 3 for certain accounts. I just think she's too much of a superstar. I'm sure you'll agree, but yeah, it's kind of like splitting hairs.
She was, and I think she was one of my most wanted for such a long time, and I absolutely lost my mind when I got her because she immediately that day took her into APOC, and I went from 72 to like 130. Literally just by putting her into the team. And it's exactly what you said, you know, with Pope and with Ingrid, to make those teams really shine, funnily enough, you need Constance. She's one of these like key heroes for comps. And again, in Guild Boss, if you want to run a ground heavy team, she's who you're going to bring in instead of Dolores, especially with your Nightmare squad. And it's just one of those things. I just think the only thing for me that like really knocks her back is two things. One, when she is not paired with a Watcher or Arbiter Lord, most of the time you're going to pick Dolores over her. There are exceptions if you're running like super ground heavy, but you really want her to be part of one of her factions. And then 2 is that she is a tank herself. Oh, hi puppy dog. As a tank herself, she's not a good tank. As in, you use her as a second tank, but because she needs to be built all attack in order to get the most out of her, she is not very good at blocking and defending, which means you have to bring another tank. Because she could be a fighter. Like, you know, she could, in terms of...
I think I'll definitely push back against that. Like, I got 120k with her as my tank before I had Krodor. It takes a lot to make it work, but I'd say not even talking about getting 120k and end game loser content creator stuff, right? Early on, she can get away with a ton. It's like her base stats aren't that bad. Remember those Azhor stats? Constance still better than that guy, right? It's kind of the same thing here, but with 100 more defense. Sorry, I keep making you puppy. You got to get out of the way. Let me.
Yeah, no. APOC, she can absolutely tank. Yeah. What I mean is like, you know, let's say you're going through Void Rift, or you're going through campaign, or you're going through content that needs a block and quite a heavy block. Even in GVG, use her as a second. You don't.
But again, I think at a point she falls off a cliff as a tank, right? But like clearing the gear dungeons, she's the best tank in the game until a certain stage. My favorite strats right now in Gear Dungeon 1, regardless of comp, is just to get Constance to work, and then the Comet requirement falls down off a cliff, the Nora requirement, the Virna requirement, then you get to go double inspo. I guess another really special thing, Bubba's going to change this, but right now there's only 2 exceptional inspiration heroes, and there's a lot of content where it's kind of nice to have 2, and then certain things where it's like you need one for one for another. So I think I'm 100% with you about her shortcomings, but I think earlier on you can avoid like all of it, and you can always make it work. And later on, everything becomes so specific anyway. I'm not really going to hold that against her, you know?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it's really.
I was gonna say, sorry, one more thing. Like, she's Brokkir is obviously like just completely goated for GVG. If we're just to take this to a PvP conversation, right? But Constance, you can still use there in her own way, not to the level at all Brokkir, but you can use her in arena. Constance is the queen, right? And Brokkir is non-existent. So I think that maybe that's kind of like the tiebreaker for me. She's gonna help you through all PvP progression to a point. Then she reaches spots where the places she's good, she's the best. She's insane in guild bosses, and then she still has all this PvP viability, and she's so unique. So I love her.
I mean, the PvP arena, she is meta in a lot of comps. And actually, I think she's very strong in GVG if you are running a Pope team. Basically, you don't even tend to really run a Pope team unless you have a Constance as your I mean, okay. There are definitely you do run it, but it's such a game changer what she does, and that is why she's one of these what I'd call game changing heroes or account changing heroes, because when you get her to your account, the difference she makes is absolutely fantastic. I just think that the argument then comes down to how do you define the best defender in the game, and so for me it's like, she doesn't need to be a defender.
That's a great point. For me, it was literally just like, of the heroes that have this class tag, who's the best?
Yeah.
But yeah, if we're doing it on like tank criteria, yeah, that's a different story. But I do think it's a little to say she's like, she could just be a fighter. She can tank. She has some cool stuff.
She can. Yeah. Oh yeah, she absolutely can tank. I'm not going to be like, oh, she can't tank at all. She's not a wet noodle. It's just very interesting how everything about her that's special is not to do with her
being a defender. Yeah, I hear you on that. Let's do one final in praise of Constance. She's one of the best looking heroes in the game, I think, in terms of like the way she's designed, the color design and everything. And you don't see any skin. So it's like, not obviously we love a sexy character, but it's really cool that they actually like at least one time pulled it off.
Can you do me one favor and show her feet?
Is she wearing high heels? Was it you who told me this, that secretly every character in the game is wearing high heels?
Like Idril, who's like awesome, she's got flat shoes, but the one that I laugh every single time about is Estrid, in the fact that you've got this absolute beef of a warrior, and she's in these teeny tiny stilettos.
These are like grandma heels. That's pretty funny.
Well, I just sort of I'm like, whereas Idril, she's in the flat shoes and she looks fantastic, and it's one of those complete side notes that I'm just like, why have you
I didn't know that about Constance, but yeah, it's really cool. She's, you know what it is with Reeve and Brokkir and Constance, I think they're not only good, but they've got such well designed kits, and I think this game's better than most in the genre at having thoughtful kits, but let's be honest, some of them are just bad. So when you get these real gems, it gets us excited, right? So I think please.
So I was just going to say, and I think that is exactly in terms of like the buckets. The bottom ones are like, these are not well thought out kits. These don't actually really make sense. They don't really bring anything. Then that middle chunk is like, they are good in like one area. And either they like completely shine in that area or they're very solid in that area. But then the top, and then that fourth one, Regulus, is just like, this is solid. This is, basic and fantastic. But those three at the top, exactly as you just said, such well thought out kits, such unique heroes, absolute game changers to your account when you get them.
That's really cool, and it actually transitions into an idea I had and I didn't know if I wanted to do, but we're probably going to end in the next 2 minutes, so maybe you want to do this with me. Let's take those bottom three and let's make them better. All right, I guess the bottom four for how, because you've swapped these. Let's just pick a couple, right? We can just take turns, but so like Orum, make this freaking permanent. Make this permanent. Then he's super relevant all of a sudden. He's this crazy buffer. Why isn't this permanent? It wouldn't be so OP. Just do it. Or make it less.
Love to see, with Infernals, given the fact that you use Infernals in Guild Boss a huge amount of time, I would love to see him bring in like really good constant debuffs that are magic based.
Totally.
So that there's a reason to put him down. Especially with like progression, because usually at the moment, if you're progressing in Guild Boss, you use Mari. Constant debuffs, go, or you can use an Aeon. And I'd love it if it's like, because he's pretty common, you just put him down and boom, 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 debuffs. Exactly like you said.
Here we go. So the basic attack, let's not make him OP. Let's just make him good.
No.
Basic attack, all basic attacks do a minus 10% or plus 10% magic vulnerability. So increase 10% damage, magic damage. Then this one, it would be 2 OP if these are permanent. And then you see with max ups, it's 30% crit rate and 30% crit damage. Make it 15 and 15, but make it permanent. If he's on the field, everyone gets, so then it changes all the gearing requirements. That's crazy. Amazing progression here, right? I think it's, so Moonton, you made it to the hour mark in the video, right? Edith, the way you do this, why is this 2 times she knocks back? Make it 10 seconds and she knocks back the whole freaking time. So she gets like 5 knockbacks. The 2 knockbacks, like it's not enough of a delay, but if she could knock back for a full 10 seconds, now you got some, remember the people were thinking maybe she's gonna be amazing in GVG. It looks like it's gonna keep happening, but it's just the 2 times, so.
Yeah, basically make the knockback like Borat, just constant, but within her ult, or make it so that she has such a short ult and it's like a double knockback. But yeah.
And then we'll just do these 3, I guess, unless there's someone else you want to do. And then Azhor, throw him out, delete him.
Yeah.
Like Orum, we rated Orum worse, right? But you can salvage the kit. They just skipped some stuff. It feels like I don't see how you're saving this unless get rid of the scales off a defense thing. Yeah, all right, let's do it. Get rid of the scales off defense thing. Make him a normal tank. Make this 28,500. 28,500. Make this 3,850. Don't even have to make him OP. Just make him usable, and then give him some.
You can even keep the defense if you do that. Like that's irrelevant. What I'd love to see is you are bringing him in to stun and to support stuff. I just want to basically see every single thing has a chance to stun.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then finally, give him some kind of delayed death.
Yes. Because every other one, Baron and Krodor, have unyielding.
I got one. So, when he dies for 5 seconds, he becomes immune. If you hit him, you get stunned for 2 seconds, and then he revives with 50% health.
Perfect.
We're cooking with gas. Come on. Any final thoughts? Miss Slate? What do you think? We happy with our list? I really love
defenders. And I think, one final thing I would definitely say that is interesting about the defenders is that the epic defenders are probably the best in terms of epics compared to their legendary counterparts. Like pretty much every other type gets outscaled, but you're still doing so well with an Olag and a Titus and even Livian for stunning, and Baron is an amazing tank. Is old. It's like there are times that you actually choose these heroes over legendary counterparts. Evelyn in Codex, Hellfire Codex, with her crazy block as well.
I think you make a really strong point, but it also that shows a negative. They were pretty thoughtless with some of the legendary tanks, so they can't even be better than the epics, because that kind of very often it's like the tank role in this job is to be tank, to be the wall, and not much more. So I think there's a lack of general thought into the class, but yes, it does mean there's so many more relevant epics. That's a great point. You're very, very spot on.
That's everything, I think.
I think so too. I just one final thing. I was like, which class do you want to do, Slate? And you're like, tanks, defenders. And I was like, she wants, because it's the smallest. And she was like, no, I really love tanks. And I think we learned today you really love tanks. Hopefully they add proper defense-based damage for you soon, because that'd be fun. I'd love
that. Yeah, I'd love that. And I'd also love to see more. I just would like to see the factions like filled out a bit. Like I really feel the cultists are lacking a really solid tank. Like Reeve is fantastic. I would like a tank for cultists. I would also like a tank for arbiters as well. Yeah, basically.
I
think they're the smallest faction, and I think they need a little bit more love.
I'm not gonna. Oh, there it is, Slate Variety. I'm not gonna disagree with that at all. And yeah, they kind of are. It's like we only have Constance as a tank in the arbiters. Like, give me. I want the second arbiter legendary lord after Praetus to be a tank. I want him to be a god. I want him to be a dwarf, and I want him to be dual faction with like cultist or northern or something crazy.
Definitely.
You guys might see on the screen, I couldn't find you because it's Slate Variety, but you're about to hit 100 followers. So guys, if you want to check out Slate on Twitch, she doesn't know I'm doing this, but I know you're trying to make affiliate ASAP. You can't even sub to people if they don't have affiliate. I didn't know that was a thing because I was on your...
I'm getting it I've just done 6 live streams because I've only just started on Twitch, and I was like, oh, this is great, but yeah, it has to be Slate variety. But I'm actually doing variety content over there, so
Cool.
it's going to be watches, but I'm also going to be playing Pokemon and some other games.
Heard
it's
of
going to
it,
be great. But yeah, it was like, oh, I got to do these 7 months. I was like, okay, cool. But again, wild that I was like, oh, it's been a week and it's getting there. It's great. So I've got
Totally.
one more live stream to do.
Amazing. So definitely check out Slate there on Twitch at Slate_variety. I think a lot of you probably already know Slate, but if you don't yet, please subscribe to her channel on YouTube. And thank you so much. It's always a ton of fun to do this. And I think we actually came up with a really beautiful list here.
Yeah. I like this list.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Check out Slate. Make sure you subscribe to my channel too. Share it with your mother, and we'll see you real soon. Bye.
Fastidious.